everyone, welcome to the community classroom. This is Dr. Tracey McCarthy, psychologist, attorney, and educator. This is a response video and a response video that is in support of the work of the Federation of Aboriginal Nations of America. There was a recent video regarding the purpose of the Indian Reorganization Act. And so we're going to discuss a little bit about that, and then we're going to provide some clarity for those who might have some questions about what exactly a trust is, because the video was talking about land trust and specifically Indian land trust. And so we're going to go into that very quickly, but expediently. And so let me provide a little bit of background. Back in 1887, the United States Congress passed what was known as the General Allotment Act. And what this General Allotment Act did was it created these parcels of land for individual tribal members of Indian nations. And this land trust was to extend for a specific period of time. And after that time, the owners would own title to the land. And then another aspect of what was going on is that surplus land that was taken away from tribal ownership but not actually allotted to members, that land was then conveyed to individuals outside of the various nations. And a number of individuals also lost their Indian land ownership through tax foreclosures. And so according to a commentary with the Department of Interior, approximately 2/3 of tribal lands were lost as a result of this allotment dynamic, this allotment process. And then a number of tribes lost their land base during the period of removal. And so if you can imagine this, somewhere between 1887 and 1933, there was an approximate loss of acres from 130 million acres to only 49 million acres in 1933. And a lot of the land that was provided was considered sort of like wasteland, a wilderness, the desert area. And not only did the groups lose land, but the actual value of the land decreased during this time period, during this process. Now, for those of you who are doing some of those research projects, I want to encourage you to, when you are tracing your families, trying to understand the history of your families, how they came to be here or how long they've been here, you might want to look at land records, because some of you will notice that some of your family members, particularly back in the 1800s, were receiving land allotments, or you might notice in your research that your family members who have land, particularly down south, that the siblings, you might have a sibling group of ancestors, and the sibling group had land adjacent. And they had land adjacent during a time when most brown people were thought to be enslaved. But oddly enough, your brown family members, you might note, actually had land, and a substantial amount of land. And the land, you might notice, was sort of a family plot of land where the different siblings, they were right next to each other or right across the road from each other, and they acquired the land at the same time. And so you might want to look out for that when you're doing your research. Okay, let's quickly go over what a trust is. A trust is basically what's known as a fiduciary agreement. And what it does is it allows a third party or a trustee. And in terms of Indian land and the United States government and that trust relationship, the United States government serves as that third party trustee that holds the assets on behalf of the beneficiaries. And so the beneficiaries would be the actual tribal nations or the individual tribal members. And so the United States government is theoretically holding the land in trust on behalf of or for the benefit of the beneficiaries, which would be the tribal nations or the individual tribal members. And so that's the way that relationship is set up. Now, a trust normally goes like this. You have a settler who then transfers the property, also known as the raise. They transfer that property to the trustee, and the trustee holds that property for the benefit of the beneficiaries, which are usually the descendants of the settler. Now, in theory, one of the purposes of a trust is to protect that legacy interest for the legacy, for the beneficiary. So it's to protect the legacy, the settler's legacy. Now, in terms of the rights of the beneficiary generally has a right to receive income and assets from the trust, because remember, the purpose of the trust is to benefit the legacy. And so that's what you should be seeing in that trust relationship. So when entities are thinking about establishing a trust, a land trust specifically, one of the things that they need to be thinking about is how the rights, powers, duties, and obligations of the parties will be spelled out. That is probably one of the most important parts of thinking about planning for a trust, particularly a land trust. Now, because Indian law is very specific and very nuanced, individuals who are thinking about going in this direction with their tribe, with their nation, they want to consider looking at attorneys who specialize in tribal law, who specialize in what's known as probate law, because those individuals usually focus on wills and trusts. And so those are the ones who would have that specialized focus where they would be able to provide the best insight in terms of directions. With all thy getting, get wisdom and knowledge and understanding. Remember, knowledge is power. Take care and see you soon.